There is no other game like Dragon's Dogma. And I mean that in the most literal way. I cannot find any other game that exists that captures the same experience as Dragon's Dogma does. The best way I can describe it to someone who doesn't know anything about it is maybe like if you got yourself a big medieval cooking pot and you threw in some Dark Souls 1, a dash of Dragon Age Origins, a big helping of Shadow of the Colossus, and a nice salty base of some Witcher 3 broth. Maybe? I don't know. Like I said, this game is unlike any other I've ever played.
My.
With Dragon's Dogma 2 coming out soon, I was curious about the original game and about why this old game still has such a passionate cult following and an active community. So in this video, I'm going to share my experience in Dragon's Dogma and dive into why this game might just be the most unique RPG ever made. And at the end, you can decide if you need some Dragon's Dogma in your backlog. Because we all need more games in our backlog, am I right? And by the way, if you decide you want to get the game for yourself, it is a whopping 84% off right now on goodoldgames.com. That is under $5 US, and that is an absolute steal considering how much game you're actually getting here. The link to this game on GOG is in the description below, and if you use my link, it does help support the channel. If you don't want this game, shop for other Good Old Games. There's always deals over there. Good Old Games is a fantastic website. It's a much better and more reliable place to buy old games than Steam. I want to start off by saying that Dragon's Dogma is not a masterpiece, nor is it the best game that I've ever played. I tried to play Dragon's Dogma 3 different times, maybe 4. And I got overwhelmed with the mechanics very quickly and gave up every single time. Until recently, when I gave in and I did some research online first before starting my playthrough. I wanted to learn some general gameplay tips and get some info on the different vocations and how the not-so-simple leveling up system actually works. The game did not tell me any of this, by the way. It just threw me in, assuming I was Tim Allen attempting to assemble a piece of furniture.
Real men don't use instructions, son.
In fact, this might be the one flaw I need to point out about this game. It is terrible at teaching the player how to do anything. Even the simplest of things, like how the level up system works, or how to craft, or how to... everything! Seriously though, I think I had about 10 questions for every single gameplay mechanic, and there are a ton of them. And I'm 100% sure this is why most people stop playing early on. It's overwhelming. All that aside, after I did finally start to learn how the game works, I began to chip away at the outer layer of dark chocolate confusion and finally reached the soft, delicious truffle-like interior that I can only label as fun. Anyone else obsessed with these over the holidays, by the way? So, pure, good old-fashioned fun started to emerge, and I finally saw what was so great about this game. Hidden underneath all of the complex and countless brain-melting game mechanics, there was a beautiful, well-put-together, super enjoyable RPG with some of the coolest and unique mechanics I have ever seen in this type of game. Let's talk about those now. The pawn system.
Wolves hunt in packs.
Maybe the most unique thing in this game and the most memorable for everyone who plays this game are the pawns you can have with you in your party. They're essentially NPC AI-powered followers who act as your party members, and you can have up to 3 total in your party or group at any time in the game as soon as you get beyond the tutorial part at the beginning. The first pawn you get is an introductory pawn, and the second one you can create from scratch. You can shape them in any way that you want and assign their class and really customize everything about them.
Our fealty is sworn to you, Arisen. From this day, the Legion's men called pawns live and die by your command.
And then, if you'd like, you can recruit 2 more pawns from the Rift and switch them out as you see fit, depending on your needs at any given time. You're not required to always have 3 pawns in your party. One of the reasons why I disliked the game a bit when I tried to play the first couple of times was because I thought I needed to have maximum pawns in my party, and the combat just started to feel a little bit chaotic, and just, this is a personal preference. I just didn't like it that much. There was too much going on. And once I scaled it down to me and one other pawn, or maybe two, I really started to enjoy the combat and felt like I was more in control of things. So keep that in mind. You don't have to have a full party of pawns, but you can. And you can have maybe 2 pawns sometimes and a full party of pawns another time. You're really not locked into it. It's really cool that they give us this option. The grabbing and throwing mechanic is very, very fun. First of all, there are explosive barrels and other items that you can pick up and just throw at enemies, or throw wherever you want to damage enemies, or to just do environmental damage of different types. But more importantly, you can literally pick up your friends or your enemies, any NPCs in the game, carry them around, throw them off a cliff, throw them in the water, throw them at enemies. You can throw your enemies at other enemies, and enemies will pick you and your friends up as well. It's just pure chaos and fun and good, janky, cheesy gameplay, and I just love it. Side note, your pawns will also pick up items and throw them. They will also throw consumables in their inventory, which can be annoying, but it can be useful sometimes.
What's that?
The combat system is absolutely fantastic and definitely innovative and super unique. I know there are other games that allow you to climb on monsters and, target weak points and stuff like that. But Dragon's Dogma was so ahead of its time in just the grand scale of everything put together. And the combat system is one of the main things that I think are memorable and really cool about this game. There's lots of big monsters, and you can climb on any monster. And climbing onto some bigger monsters and bosses is key to damaging them and debuffing them so that they will stop maybe casting a spell, or maybe you need to remove a piece of armor from the monster's head so that you can do damage to them. And the climbing mechanic itself is pretty in-depth, and there are different things that change how your character is going to be able to scale an enemy. And there are certain skills that will work while you are clinging onto an enemy versus while you are on the ground. Lots and lots to learn, tons to master. Very, very cool. And you will feel like a total badass while you're doing it. Some more points about the combat system that I appreciated are the different resistances that enemies have that you need to sort of counter. And this is such an old school RPG mechanic that is not in enough games anymore. And I know this game is a bit older, but man, the retro gamer in me loves this so much. I love having to plan ahead for battles and identify the weaknesses in the enemies I'm fighting. And just the fact that I have to pre-plan, get the right items in order to do the absolute best against any monster. It's so cool, and it's so rewarding once you actually learn. It's kind of Witcher vibes, honestly. But it is just generally kind of a forgotten RPG mechanic that we definitely need to have in games. It's super fun. Maybe some people don't love it, but I love it. Comment down below if you're in my club or if you're in the other club. I'm curious. Now, aside from resistances and enemy weak points and debuffs and stuff, there's also items that you can find that will really, really buff your damage. There are also items that are incredibly overpowered, and if you find them, you will start leaning on them a little bit. Of course, they're completely optional. This game gives us a ton of freedom to do combat and however we choose. But there's a lot of options for you to try to tackle enemies and bosses that are way above your level if you know the right way to go about it. Very fun. I love it so much. Look at that. Look at that. The carrion of foes you have slain may attract even stronger monsters. No. No, thank you. I'm good. No. Ah! Is it like a vampire dog? So all in all, combat system, very complex, very fun. Preparation is key. It's very in-depth. There's lots to master, but it's worth mastering. Ah! Watch out, guy! By the way, if you like what you see here and you want to follow along and watch in real time, you can watch my full episodic Let's Play of Dragon's Dogma on my second channel, Lilia Uncut. I'll have a link to it on the video and in the description below if you like that sort of thing. Thanks for watching. You can double jump in this game. Now, I only played a few vocations, so I'm not aware if there are any other further amazing abilities that you can unlock that are similar to this, but I was just absolutely ecstatic to get double jump. This not only looks really cool, but it lets you access secret areas that look like they're inaccessible. And what do you find in these secret areas? Loot. And that just gives the sense of exploration a very rewarding feeling. And not only that, it makes you want to explore more and more. And it makes you feel cool that you got to access a little piece of the map with a secret in it that maybe everyone else missed. It also helps with just traversing the levels and causing you to die less, which is also obviously very helpful. Now, this isn't a really innovative or new mechanic or anything, but I still think it was really cool and added a lot to the game. There is a day-night cycle. NPCs have their own schedules depending on what time of day it is. And if you go out and explore the wilderness at night, you will find different types of monsters that appear only at night and ones that appear only during the day, which just makes exploration even more fun. They did not have to add a day-night cycle in this game, but they did. There are so many things that they did not have to add in this game, but they did. Another little thing that I noticed while I was playing that I thought was just so cool is the monsters AI. And I don't know for sure if the pawns have a similar AI. I think it's different. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the monsters will do things like realize when they're outnumbered, and they will cower and run away from you. If an enemy is set on fire, for example, it will roll around and flail its arms around like it's actually on fire. I hate in games where you set somebody on fire and they're just like, oh, must have been the wind, as they walk down the hallway, literally bursting in flames. Which brings me to my next point. This game is very immersive. It's trying to be very immersive, as realistic as it can without being too annoying. And we realize that with another mechanic, which is the lantern mechanic. There is even more mechanics that are sort of hidden underneath that I'm not really going to talk about in this video because they're just kind of minor. But the lantern mechanic is something that goes along with the day-night cycle and also comes into play when you're in dark dungeons. If you have your lantern on and it runs out of oil, you need to refill it. If you get wet while you have a lit lantern, your lantern goes out and you have to dry off. There's even cloth that you can wipe on yourself to dry off the water so that you can light your lantern again. It's really, really in-depth, and I definitely appreciate what the devs were trying to do with this game. I wouldn't be surprised if there was like 50 other little things they really wanted to have in the game that they ended up cutting out just because they decided it was too much. And these little immersive things are not like make or break for me. Like I appreciate that they're there. They're cool. They didn't get in the way too much, but they are definitely enough of an inconvenience where you realize that they're there and you have to sort of play around them a little bit. I think this is something that some people will really dislike, but others will really, really love. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. Okay, so those are all the cool mechanics that I really thought stood out to me when I played. Now we're going to talk about the things that were just flat out great about this game's design. These are more general topics. Number one, great dungeon and level design. The first thing I was reminded of when I started playing and did the first few dungeons was Dark Souls 1. Just because of how the dungeons were kind of laid out and the loop that you go through. For some of them, not all of them. Some dungeons in this game are weaker because there are a lot of them, and this is an open world RPG, so I don't expect them all to be Dark Souls level of cool, but I'm just saying that's the vibe I got. And some of the dungeons also had the look kind of a similar style to Dark Souls 1. But aside from the style and the aesthetic, just the dungeon delving in general was very, very fun, and it gave me a nice feeling of just classic dungeon delving, sort of a Dungeons and Dragons kind of feeling. Very warm and cozy for me. Number 2, open world exploration was good. Big map to explore. There's tons of side quests, enough content just in the world to get you lost for hours and hours and hours. That's always a good thing in an open world RPG. While the main storyline is a little strange, I found myself enjoying it, and especially the quality of the cutscenes and the voice acting was pretty good.
I fear your crown outshines my own.
For a game of this age, I think the story and just the way that they designed the cutscenes is very, very, very nice. Very pleasing to the eyes, pleasing to the ears. I think they did a good job there. I don't know what the end of the game is like in the cutscenes or the story, so I can't really be a good judge of that. You guys will have to let me know, but from what I saw, I really did enjoy how they put that together.
By my command, every road in Grancis shall be open to you henceforth as a member of the Worm Hunt. May your efforts help deliver us from the shadow of the dragon. As long as that damnable beast draws breath, I'll fain accept any help on offer. All right.
And the fourth thing, memorable boss battles. Never before have boss battles felt like this for me. You know, I talked about this earlier with just the combat mechanics coming into play and also the music. Oh my goodness. The music is so good, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Number 5, the soundtrack. The soundtrack is beautiful. It's gorgeous. I found myself stopping every once in a while playing and being like, oh man, this is great music.
It's close. I can feel it.
And that always adds a lot to a game like this. Number 6, this game has a very, very high level of replayability, especially when you add the expansion Darl Arisen, which adds another area with a big expansive dungeon and introduces a ton more mechanics to the game, which I'm not even going to get into in this video because it's just so much. But let's just say that it adds a crap load of gameplay, and the base game itself is just massive anyway, not to mention the fact that there's a new game plus, so once you beat the game itself, you can play again and do things you missed out on and play different vocations. You can play endlessly. Another great thing about this game is the cult following and the glorious community that this game has. Thank God for the community, by the way, because without that great community behind this game, I would have been very stuck and I would never have gotten anywhere in the game. So thank God for the internet. And thank God for the Dragon's Dogma community. Thank you, guys. Now, my ultimate favorite thing about this game was the cheese. The absolute amazing potential for cheese galore. And what do I mean by this? If you're new to my channel, you might not understand what I mean. Basically, the game gave me the freedom to do pretty much whatever I wanted, and it didn't try to stop me from climbing up ledges, stacking powerful buffs to do insane damage to high-level enemies. I felt like I could truly play the game however I wanted, and that really made it a ton of fun. I can only imagine the possibilities that I could get into with the cheese factor if only I had more knowledge. And I will keep playing this game and learning more and more and finding new exciting ways to cheese the game because I love to do that in games, especially in games that are this age. Oh man, the glorious cheesy jank is at a high level, and if you share the love for games of this era with me, then I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about. But there is something special with games that came out around this time, and I think Dragon's Dogma is a beautiful example of that. Thumbs up for cheese. Now, I just talked for 20 minutes about all the really cool, amazing things about Dragon's Dogma. But there are some cons, and I'm sure some of you are like, well, the game is not that great. Come on, Lilia, what the butts? So I will talk about the things that I thought were a little meh. The leveling system. I don't think it's bad, but it didn't feel really rewarding or interesting, and it was overly complicated, especially when I just started playing. You have to level up your character's level with experience points, but then there's a secondary form of experience points that you get that you use to level up the rank of your vocation. So each vocation that you use, you can level up separately. So there's two systems at play. And that to me was very confusing, coupled with the fact that you don't ever do anything when you level up. There's a little message that pops up that says, you've ascended to level 49, but nothing happens. You don't have to do anything, assign any points. That's it. You're just level 49. Everything sort of just happens in the background, which I guess can be a good thing. But to me, it was a little meh, honestly. Also, the game is generally kind of unbalanced, which is again not entirely a bad thing, but it might be to some people. Becoming powerful is possible with almost any vocation, but sometimes you need to know what you're doing, which means understanding the game, which is hard to master. Circling back on what I said before about cheese, though, this does unlock more potential for cheese, so I don't know, maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe it's a good thing because it's unbalanced. Maybe that equals more fun. I don't know. It just is kind of unfortunate that sometimes the classes that you play feel a lot more powerful than other classes. It really depends on how much you know. Maybe that's what it comes down to. You just need more knowledge in order to cancel out the unbalanced nature of things. And of course, the fact that nothing is explained well or at all. Dragon's Dogma has tons of hidden mechanics that make the game special. Most of them are really, really cool, but unfortunately almost none of this gets explained to the player ever. This is the main reason most people struggle to get into the game and unfortunately never get to see how fun the game can be, because they quit. And finally, researching and asking the community is almost necessary to make progress sometimes within the game, which I do think is a downside. It doesn't seem necessary for a game of this age to force us to sort of have to use the internet to gain knowledge about how to do really basic things. But should you play Dragon's Dogma? Did all the things I said stir up anything inside you that made you think you need this game as well? Do you have the patience to spend time getting into the game and learning the necessary steps to master it? Are you prepared to spend many hours wandering around and having fun, but making very little progress? Are you okay with little to no hand-holding from the game? And are you okay looking things up online? Are you ready to play the coolest and kookiest open-world RPG that you've ever experienced? If you answered yes to all of those previous questions, then yeah, you're ready for some Dragon's Dogma. You can find the game with my link below. Thank you so much to my patrons and YouTube members who support the channel and make these videos possible. If you want to watch my full playthrough of Dragon's Dogma, you can go over to my second channel and watch the whole thing in its entirety over there if you have the time. Thank you so much for your eyeballs. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
What a gaff! I've been drenched.